Hey, what is going on, you dusty dupiter? Today we're taking a look at Stellar Miracle, the next set they'll be releasing over in Japan in like 2 days. That's actually crazy. We don't even have Sharded Fable yet, and they're about to get their next set selling. I complain about this so much. Honestly, just like talking about this makes me frustrated because we don't even have Sharded Fable yet, and they are already getting their next set, Stellar Miracle. The set's been fully revealed, so that's what I'm going to be reviewing, taking a look at, sharing my thoughts with here today in this video. Before we jump into it though, whenever new sets, new cards drop on PTCG Live, I'm sure some of y'all out there need codes so you can get some credits to build all the new decks. As always, PTCGL store has got you covered. Plenty of codes over there to pick from. And of course, you can use code AzulGG to get yourself a discount as well. Support me and everything I do with all my content here on the YouTube channel, the Twitch stream, everything, you name it, helps me out over here. So check them out, ptcglstore.com. Link, of course, will be in the description. Code AzulGG. All right, let's jump into it, to these cards. I'm trying not to get too annoyed at the fact that we won't have these cards for months from now. The first one up is the Lydian with the ability Sparkling Star Pattern. When you play this Pokemon from your hand to evolve one of your Pokemon during your turn, you may switch in one of your opponent's bench Pokemon with 90 HP or less remaining to the active spot. So the main combo that I've come up with this potentially as a card is to combo this with Snipe Pokemon, Radiant Greninja, or Greninja EX. Both have Snipe attacks that can hit multiple bench Pokemon with their attack. But Manaphy, of course, is a hindrance to those cards getting full value out of their attacks. But if we can bring up that Manaphy to the active, use Canceling Cologne, then we can get full value out of our Snipe attacks from there. So Lydian can bring the Manaphy to the active. It's another way to get into the active. Of course, there's stuff like Prime Catcher, Counter Catcher, and Boss's Orders, but being able to do it through a Pokemon can open up some routes and I guess some efficiency on the turn. And the biggest thing is that the Ladybug, at least for like a Radiant Greninja, or excuse me, a Greninja EX deck, is you could like Poffin for Ladybug, and then later on in the game, Ultra Ball, or maybe Quick Search if you're playing with Pidgeot, which I assume you would if you're playing with a Lydian build, and get the Lydian, bring up their Manaphy, and this still allows you to play like a supporter for the turn, or if you're not behind on prize cards, you want to be able to play Counter Catcher, so it allows you to be more consistent, more aggressively take those knockouts around the Manaphy. So that's the main combo I've come up with this card overall. Besides that, nothing super powerful. It's got free retreat cost, which is kind of cool as well. But that's that one. Gonna skip the Cradily here. I had my complaint about that in the last video. There's this Mow Rotom here. It's got an interesting attack for a colorless energy. Harvesting Dash, 30 damage before doing damage. Discard all Pokemon tool cards and special energy cards from your opponent's active Pokemon. So theoretically, this could be kind of cool against Lugia V-Star, specifically up against the Lugia V-Stars themselves. Or maybe to even like trap an Iron Hands in the active as well, depending on what kind of build of Lugia it is. Excuse me, because if it is the build with the basic lightning, they could still attack once more with the Iron Hands. But if they only play the Legacy energy, the Mow Rotom could discard all special energy attached to their Pokemon and make it pretty difficult for them to follow up by attacking with the Iron Hands again. Of course, they still have Jet Energy or could hard retreat it, but it's a pretty big investment. And like I mentioned, also using this on a Lugia V-Star could be annoying, especially if you don't have a way to one-hit KO the Lugia V-Star. Because that's like the thing with this Mow Rotom, is if you could just one-hit KO their active, you may as well do that instead of using Mow Rotom. But for something like the Lugia V-Star or maybe like an Iron Hands, if you can't quite one-hit KO it for what the point you're at in the game, or depending on what deck you're playing, then that Harvesting Dash could be the difference maker from slowing them down or getting run over. So cool potential tech card here with the Mow Rotom. Honestly, this could also maybe be good up against Control to deal with like Mist Energies and the tool card that they play, the Brace, possibly something there as well. But if it's going to find a home, I think it's going to be as a tech card up against Lugia more so than anything. The Hydrapple, big stage 2 Pokemon here, 330 HP, that Ripe Charge ability. Once on your turn, you may attach a basic Grass Energy card from your hand to one of your Pokemon. If you do, heal 30 damage from that Pokemon. And then the Syrup Storm for 2 colorless energy, 30 damage plus 30 more damage for each Grass Energy attached to your Pokemon. All Pokemon in play. So this obviously is going to combo pretty well with that Ogerpon, the Teal Mask Ogerpon, that can self-accelerate energy to itself, and then you get the Hydrapple in play, can accelerate grass energy anywhere, plus you get some manual attachments for turn. By turn 2, with like 2 to 3 Ogerpons cooking, 1 Hydrapple at least out into play, you could have like 6 energy in play on turn 2, and then ramp that all the way up to like 9 or maybe even 10 on the following turn, and then you're basically one-hit KOing anything in the format. The Ripe Charge, healing that 30 damage, isn't a whole ton, but a couple of Ripe Charges with maybe that new A-Spec coming out that heals 150 damage from one of your Pokemon could turn a 2-hit KO into a 3-hit KO. So there's definitely some potential for the Hydrapple. A lot of HP, can hit damage pretty high, or can hit pretty big numbers pretty quickly as well once you get that Ogerpon in there. So I think the Hydrapple EX has potential. Also grass type, which is pretty good because Charizard, at least in the Shrouded Fable format, looks like it'll probably be the best deck overall. We're a little bit away from this, so Charizard is going to have its reign of terror, but Hydrapple might be one of the things to slow it down. Salazzle up here next. Now, this card, the combo you can pull off with this card is really powerful, and I think you can do it pretty consistently. The problem with Salazzle is I just don't know how you win the game after you combo them. And the combo would be Sudden Burn for 2 colorless energy. Your opponent discards a card from their hand. If this Pokemon evolved from Salandit during this turn, they discard 2 more cards. So, Unfair Stamp, put your opponent down to 2 cards. Roxanne, put your opponents down to 2 cards. After your opponent's drawn 3 prize cards, Iono puts your opponent down to 3 cards. So, it's pretty easy. Also, Xerosic, the new Xerosic supporter, says your opponent discards cards from their hand until they have 3 remaining. So you could Unfair Stamp or Xerosic like turn 2, and then attack here with that Sudden Burn, put them to a 0-card hand. That's it, they're hand locked. But they got B-Barrel in play. If they have Pidgeot in play, they're not completely locked out of the game. They have some draw power in play. They can work from there. Also, even after you do that, let's say you counter catchered up, like, I don't know, some Pokemon with like 2 retreat cost even, and then you hand lock them. Eventually, they're going to draw something. So you got to do something. I think maybe the best thing you could pair this with would be like a Chi-Yu. So you go from like hand locking them to just hoping their top deck is dead, and then you immediately go into the Chi-Yu, start milling them. But besides that, honestly, I don't see this being too powerful. I just feel like there's nothing great to combo it with. This combo, the Sudden Burn attack, pulling it off like turn 2 is great. But from there, I haven't come up with a good thing to do. There's a couple okay things, but nothing great. But maybe in the future we'll get another card or even like support or some way more to interact with your opponent's deck and controlling their top deck or something like that. That will lead to Salazzle being pretty good overall. But for right now, it's got the potential. Up next, Cinderace EX. I talked about this in one of my videos not too long ago, and I think I underthought this one a little bit. I've seen some people talk about this a little bit more, and I like a lot of the ideas that are floating around about this card. So 320 HP, it's got that Flare Strike, attack for a fire and 2 colorless energy, 280. During your next turn, this Pokemon can't use Flare Strike. And then the second attack, which I don't think you'll use unless you like included Neo Upper Energy in here, which you could, but I think there's better A-Spec choices for a Fire Fighting Dark. Oof. This attack does 180 to one of your opponent's Pokemon. So a snipe attack, but you can always just like play Prime Catcher as your A-Spec, and then that basically turns the 280 into a 1-hit on things with higher HP. So yeah, I don't think you're using the second attack ever with this card, probably. But the first attack, Flare Strike, 280, pretty decent. Like I said, double colorless for half of the, or over half the energy cost means we can get double turbo energy involved, and then the fire energy cost, we could either attach twice. You could get Magma Basin involved to accelerate some energy into play. Another thing that I saw is this Pokemon does have free retreat, which is something I missed on my first analysis of this card. It does have 0 retreat cost. That's something I gotta look out for more. I gotta like check Pokemon's weakness, resistance, and retreat cost. I feel like I just like skipped that part. I just look at the attack, the cool flashy numbers, the HP number, how much damage do they do, what are the cool attack effects or ability effects. But yeah, 0 retreat cost is a pretty big deal for this card. So you could set up 2 of them. You could retreat between them. You could get Armor Rouge involved to move the energy back and forth. And even move the energy that you accelerated with Magma Basin potentially onto the Armor Rouge itself. Also, free retreat means you can find this with Feather Ball. It is a stage 2 Pokemon. And another stage 2 Pokemon that has free retreat is Pidgeot, which is always a great partner to include in any deck if possible. If we're already playing Marcandy, we're already playing Feather Ball. Hey, sounds like a good combo to me. So yeah, Cinderace EX comboed with Pidgeot, I could see that Armor Rouge. This card definitely has more potential than I initially give it credit for. And then the big question would be, how are we getting 280 damage, or potentially 260 if we're using double turbo energy? How are we getting that to like the 330s, 320s of Dragapult and Charizard? Pokemon will probably want to be able to one-hit KO in a couple matchups, or a decent amount of matchups. Maximum Belt could get involved. I guess Kieran could get involved to an extent as well. Maybe there's some other smaller fire attackers we can use initially to set up damage. And if we're using the Armor Rouge build, we get stuff like Delphox involved alongside this to have more high-level threat options. So yeah, Cinderace, definitely a little bit better than I initially gave it credit for. I'm going to skip Lapras. I think Lapras is so bad, I'm just going to go ahead and skip it. It is an EX. It is a new Terra Pokemon. It's garbage. And we're going to keep cruising here for a little while. I don't even remember what the next thing... Oh, Joltik. Broken card. Maybe the best card in the set, to be honest. Maybe I'm speaking a little bit too soon. There's some really good cards in the set. But it's got that battery charge attack for 1 colorless energy. So you can play this in a lot of decks, but it does search your deck for only 2 grass energy and up to 2 lightning energy. So we are limited to grass and lightning energy. Of course, that does combo with a couple things in the current format. I mean, I don't think I'd play this with like Raging Bolt or anything like that. But there's a lot of energy being put into play. So it doesn't have to be utilized just with itself. Putting this much energy in play can be used in many different ways, and probably will be used in a couple different decks throughout this Joltik's lifespan in the standard format. And you attach them to your Pokemon in any way you like. And there's this Galvantula coming out, Galvantula EX. And I think there definitely could be something here where Galvantula EX could become a deck. And it would be a pretty scary one, to be honest. So its first attack for Lightning Colors, it does 110 damage. And if you're attacking into an EX or V Pokemon, you do 110 more damage. So the 220 damage knocks out stuff like Arceus V. Cool. It is a Terra Pokemon as well, so it's got that attribute, of course. But then its second attack for Grass Lightning, which we can accelerate and play with Joltik. We're definitely going to attack with Joltik initially here to get everything set up. But then we do need to get a fighting energy involved. 180 damage, discard all energy from this Pokemon during your opponent's next turn. They can't play any item cards from their hand. So item lock has always been extremely powerful in the Pokemon TCG. Comboing that with doing 180 damage, all right, it's kind of coming together. But we do have to discard all of the energy off of our Galvantula. So there's a couple energy acceleration cards that are coming out in this form. We got Crispin, which accelerates the energy to one of our Pokemon, searches our deck for an energy. You could play electric generator. That seems a little iffy because we're probably not gonna play that many lightning energy. We have to play like equal fighting, lightning, and grass energy in the deck, basically. So I don't think that will be that great, to be honest. I don't think we're playing electric generator in this deck. Of course, we have manual attachments for turn. And there is the new Terra Tool card that provides any type of energy on a Terra Pokemon. That could be helpful as well. Ogerpong with E-Switch is another way to get some energy in play. So there's all these little ways to accelerate energy in play. None of them are great because we play so many different energy types, but it would be a start. Also, Sandy Shocks. There is a Sandy Shocks that says once your opponent's drawn or has 4 or less prize cards remaining, you can accelerate a fighting energy from your discard pile to it. So you could theoretically play like 2 Sandy Shocks, 2 Ogerpong, probably not generators. You still have manual attachments from hand, and then like 4 E-Switch. And then you can just like, those will get some energy into play. You E-switch them around to your Galvantulas, you attach for turn. I think it might be able to work out, and then we could create enough bench space to have bench space for all those Pokemon because of the new Terra Stadium coming out that says as long as we have a Terra Pokemon in play, we have 8 bench spaces to work with. So we can make it all kind of work potentially. Yeah, there's no great way to continuously accelerate energy to this Pokemon, I don't think, which is probably a good thing, because this thing easily being able to do 180 and item lock you turn after turn after turn would probably make it the most broken deck in the format by far, not even close, and it might be a pretty unformat to play in. So I think you have to work pretty hard to get this thing going turn after turn, but it could still be pretty solid in the end. Charjabug here. Now, this Charjabug is good not for this Vikavolt, but for an older Vikavolt. The older Vikavolt does 80 plus 60 for each Charjabug on your bench, but this Charjabug is a pretty big deal with that because parallel lineup for lightning energy, search your deck for up to 3 Charjabug and put them onto your bench, then shuffle your deck. And the Vikavolt, like I mentioned, does 80 plus 60 for each Charjabug in play. So if you get 3 Charjabug on your bench and then KO your active Charjabug and then you get a Vikavolt out, you know, we're basically one-hit KOing most things in the format at that point. Of course, we'll still be playing for Grubbin. The energy cost of that Vikavolt, though, is 2 lightning energy, so Neo upper energy would work. But from there, I don't know, EXP share we can maybe get involved. The generator, electromagnetic generator could get involved as well. Of course, we have manual attachments for turn, so chaining the Vikavolt is going to be the problem. But it definitely seems like it could be a possible one prize powerhouse. We'll have to wait and see. This Togedemaru, I talked about this in a video recently. The translation that was originally here on PokeBeach, that was apparently incorrect. So this card went from being like, oh my gosh, this seems like super good, not like game breaking, game changing to that extent, but like really powerful card that is a little bit niche, but will definitely find its way into a deck or two to I think this card sucks. So the initial translation said 30 damage for 1 lightning energy. If your opponent has exactly 1 prize card remaining, their active is now paralyzed. But the actual translation is if you have exactly 1 prize card remaining, your opponent's active is now paralyzed. So I'm pretty sure this card actually just sucks. If you have 1 prize card remaining, I mean, you could shocking chance and trap your opponent's active turn after turn after turn to try and win the game, or you could probably just boss something up off their bench and knock it out. So yeah, Togedemaru, yeah, not what I thought it was. I'm kind of sad about it, to be honest, because the other version of the card seemed really, really cool. Yeah, now it does not seem quite as cool. Drifblim here. It's got an interesting attack, and I've actually seen some people talk about this a little bit more. I think there's a little bit more potential to this card than I initially gave it credit for, because I forgot about Relicanth. But yeah, everyone explode now. 50 damage for each of your Drifloon and Drifblim in play for 1 psychic energy, and then it does 30 damage to each of your Drifloon and Drifblim in play. So load up all your Drifloons and Drifblims in play. There's the other Drifloon that people play in Guard for right now, that for a Psychic and a Colorless energy, it does 30 damage for each. Actually, it might be double Psychic energy, actually, I forget. It does 30 damage for each damage counter on it. So you can sit here with the Drifblim, load up damage on your Drifloons, evolve them into Drifblims, continue to load up damage on them with Everyone Explode now, continuously recover your Drifblims with Super Rod, use Xatu to accelerate extra energy into play, manual attachments for turn as well alongside that, and then you can put Relicanth in play, and you could have a Drifblim built up with like 120 damage on it because it's got 130 HP, and then you can do 360 damage. Kind of cool. So actually, there's more potential for this deck than I initially thought. I kind of forgot about Relicanth, but getting Relicanth involved, there could be something pretty cool here, to be honest, with Drifblim plus Xatu plus Relicanth for the late game. Take those big one-hit KOs. Definitely something there, I think. Definitely something there. Dachsbun. The more I've thought about the Dachsbun deck, I actually think might be pretty good. Not Dachsbun by itself, but like Dachsbun Pidgeot EX control style deck. Because you can put Pidgeot in your actives at 280 HP, and I don't know, maybe you could put a tool card in there to give it a little bit more HP. Then your opponent punches it, and then you can like Dachsbun heal it. Dachsbun's ability, once on your turn, when you play this card from your hand to evolve one of your Pokemon, you heal all damage from each of your evolution Pokemon. If you do, discard all energy from each Pokemon healed in this way. So you could even theoretically set up like 3 or 4 Pidgeot EX, retreat between them, your opponent punches each of them, and then you evolve to a Dachsbun, and then you heal all 3 of them. And that's it. And then you turtle up the Dachsbun and put the Fido back down, and then get ready to do it all again. So I don't know. I think there could be some combo there. Dachsbun plus Pidgeot EX, some kind of control, heal, stall, wall type deck. I don't know. It'd be interesting. We got the Iron Boulder up next. It's got that adjustable horn for a Psychic and a Colorless, 170 damage. If you do not have the same number of cards in your hand as your opponent, this attack does nothing. So I like this in the idea of it being like a single prize future deck. The problem, of course, is that you are capped at like 170 damage. But if you get this involved with like the Miraidon to initially set you up, and you play like the Reboot Pod, for anyone who doesn't know what Reboot Pod does, it's the future A spec that says attach a basic energy from your discard pile to each of your future Pokemon in play. That's a lot of energy acceleration. You could accelerate 6 energy into play with that, theoretically. Of course, your damage is limited at 170, so it kind of makes it seem like we want to be playing Iron Crowns, but no matter how many Iron Crown you play, we're never one-hit KOing anything like Charizard or Dragapult. So at that point, I feel like it's better to play it as just like a one-prize deck, like just Iron Boulder and Miraidon. You try and match their hand size by playing stuff like B-Barrel and Judge and stuff like that. Bring their hands lower, make it easy to match their hand size by having some draw power and play with the B-Barrel. And we're doing 170 like every single turn. Is that enough? I don't know. Probably not. Yeah, Iron Boulder's probably not the one prize deck that we were hoping for. I feel like we haven't had like a really strong one prize deck in a while. I mean, Lost Box doesn't really count. I don't really count Lost Box. Yeah, when was the last time we had a really powerful one prize? Am I just like not thinking about a deck right now? Maybe not. Maybe I'm like missing something. Medicham EX, 260 HP. Do colorless energy, put damage counters on your opponent's active Pokemon until its remaining HP is 50. Definitely some cool potential combinations here with like TM Devo, the new Dusclops and Dusknoir coming out. The second attack for a fighting double colorless energy, Yoga Kick, 190. This attack's damage isn't affected by weakness or resistance. Yeah, so there could be something here with this first attack and some kind of combo up against evolution decks. Maybe not. Maybe I'm overthinking it a little bit. Not as powerful as the last good Medicham that we had, that's for sure. The last one was definitely a little bit better. All right, and keep scrolling along here. I think we're gonna have a little ways to go. We got the Klinklang here, 140 HP. Stage 2 Pokemon. Emergency spin. Once during your turn, if this Pokemon is in your hand and your opponent has a Stage 2 Pokemon in play, you may put this Pokemon onto your bench. And then for 2 colorless energy, it does 130 damage. Discard all energy from this Pokemon. So initially, definitely looking at this card, it's pretty good against Chien-Pao. Chien-Pao's not that good right now, but who knows? Maybe it'll make a comeback. And obviously, anything that's weak to metal that puts a Stage 2 in play, this could also be pretty good up against those. I think Klinklang also has like a home just in decks that have historically struggled in taking control of the prize trade because they don't really have a good one prize attacker. I think the best example of that is like Arceus B-Barrel decks. Arceus B-Barrel decks generally don't play a one prize Pokemon because there's no great one prize Pokemon to play in the deck. And there's quite a few good Stage 2 decks going around right now. Charizard, Dragapult, Gardevoir, and Klinklang would honestly be decent up against any of those included into an Arceus deck. So I could definitely see this being thrown into the Arceus deck. Also, Arceus plays double turbo energy. So it's the attack cost of the 2 colorless energy here on the Klinklang. Gives you a 1 prize or 2 attack with. Doesn't seem terrible. Definitely could see this being pretty high value in Arceus decks moving forward. Or any deck that doesn't really have a great 1 prize option. And you can easily set this up for the 2 colorless energy cost. If you can do both those things, you know, if you check both those boxes, Klinklang's probably pretty decent in that deck. Of course, it only matters going up against Stage 2 decks, so it's not good against everything. Up next, we got the Noctowl, one of the broken new Terra support cards coming out. 100 HP. Ability, when you play this Pokemon from your hand to evolve one of your Pokemon during your turn, you may have, if you have any Terra Pokemon in play, you may search your deck for up to 2 trainer cards. Really good. JD dealings. Reveal them and put them into your hand, then shuffle your deck. So it's only once when you evolve it. can't continuously use it turn after turn after turn, and we don't have something in the format like Scoop Up Net to reset it, but still pretty powerful overall, especially because we're getting that Terra Stadium that gives us so much bench space to work with potentially in these Terra decks. You definitely have room for Noctowl on your bench. And the card that I think is actually like most broken for these Terra decks, like the big consistency factor, of course it combos with the Noctowl here, is this Fan Rotom, 70 HP. So you could Buddy Poffin for it. I don't know if you'd actually play Buddy Poffin in any deck that would play this, but its ability, Fan Call. Once on your turn, you may search your deck for up to 3 colorless Pokemon with 100 HP or less, reveal them, and then put them into your hand, shuffle your deck afterward. You can't use more than 1 Fan Call during your turn, and it's only during your first turn. You can only use this during your first turn of the game, but that's pretty good because you can search out 2 Hoot Hoot and a Noctowl, or this next colorless Pokemon we're going to talk about that also has 100 HP or less is the Bouffalant with the Curly Wall ability. If you have another Bouffalant in play, your colorless Pokemon takes 60 less damage from attack from your opponent's Pokemon. So specifically, this is going to really combo really well with the Terapagos Terra Pokemon that's coming out, the Terapagos EX. But yeah, the Rotom offers an insane amount of consistency on that first turn of the game to get the Noctowl pieces, to get the Bouffalant pieces, whatever. It's just kind of crazy how good the Fan Rotom is, to be honest. This card is actually insane for like that whole combo kind of coming together in terms of consistency. So yeah, absolutely absurd card for that. And now we do get to the Terapagos EX. Definitely going to be pretty powerful, I think. I think they're giving it too many tools for it to not be good. 230 HP, but we just talked about that Bouffalant. Minus 60, so it effectively is 290 HP. Put a Bravery Charm on there. You effectively have 340 HP. A 2-prize Pokemon that effectively has 240 HP is kind of crazy. Its attack, Ununified, beat down for 2 colorless energy, 30 damage. If you go second, you can't use this attack during your first turn. I love this restriction here. This attack does 30 damage for each of your benched Pokemon. So we're getting that new stadium. We'll talk about here in a second a little bit. We're already talking about so much, we're probably not going to say much. But new stadium card coming out makes your bench 8 Pokemon. You can have 8 Pokemon on your bench. So you get that into play. You fill up your bench, and the Unified Beatdown is doing 240 damage. You're knocking out stuff like Raging Bolt. Now, there's a couple ways you could probably play this. There's an Energy Acceleration card we're going to talk about here in a second, the Glass Trumpet, or you can play with Double Turbo Energy. And just 4 Double Turbos, that's all the energy you're running here. And you just beat down turn after turn after turn with your Terapagos. You're only doing 220 at that point, but you have an effective 340 HP. I don't know, that still seems pretty good to me. And then you don't have to play all the other like basic energy and stuff like that. It does have another attack that would work with basic energy for Grass, Water, Lightning, the Crown Opal 180 during your opponent's next turn. Prevent all damage done to this Pokemon by attacks from basic non-colorless Pokemon. So it can't wall against itself, but other basic non-colorless Pokemon it could. And I'm sure that might see some value, not too sure. But yeah, the Double Turbo Energy build seems like the best to me. I don't know. We'll have to wait and see for sure. But here's that Glass Trumpet that I was talking about. Choose up to 2 of your benched colorless Pokemon and attach a basic energy from your discard pile to each of them. You can only use this if you have a Terra Pokemon in play. Absolutely just broken card for energy acceleration. And obviously it combos with Terapagos. It's a colorless basic Pokemon that you can put on your bench pretty easily. But like I said, the Double Turbo Energy might just be a better build because you have to play like a bunch of different basic energies. You'd have to play Radiant Greninja at that point, which I mean, it's not a bad thing to play Radiant Greninja. They have to play like 4 Glass Trumpet, or you could just play 4 Double Turbo Energy. I don't know. I feel like I just like playing 4 Double Turbo Energy. But maybe I'm missing something, I'm not sure. But yeah, Glass Trumpet by itself, though, is just a crazy powerful energy acceleration card. It is limited to colorless Pokemon, though. So not every Terra Pokemon is going to be able to take advantage of this, which is probably a good thing. Actually, we talked about that Sylveon EX recently. And there is a couple EVs in the format, I believe, right now. There's a new EV coming out, which we don't know quite what it does, but we know it has an ability. And usually EVs with abilities are pretty good. But Eevee's a colorless Pokemon. So if you can get a Terra Pokemon in play in your Sylveon deck, then you can accelerate energy with the Glass Trumpet to the EVs. I mean, I guess you could get a Sylveon in play and then accelerate to the EVs, but then you weren't accelerating energy to that Sylveon specifically, but that might not be the end of the world. But yeah, you can accelerate the Glass Trumpet to the EVs after you get a Terra Pokemon in play, which could be the Sylveon, and then you evolve those EVs to Sylveons, and then all of a sudden you're attacking with your Sylveons more aggressively than I thought you'd be able to. I didn't really think about that combo, but I saw someone mention it, and yeah, it makes a ton of sense. So Glass Trumpet, Sylveon, EV combo, gonna be pretty sick. Antique Root Fossil. Someone actually called me out for not mentioning this card, and I definitely should have when I talked about the Cradily the other day in a video, but its ability is actually pretty good. The Primal Roots, as long as this Pokemon is in the active spot, your opponent's basic Pokemon's attacks cost colorless more. So it's really interesting in for a lot of different reasons. It'd be really good going second, or I guess even potentially going first when you play up against more aggressive decks like Decks like Miraidon that can use turn 1 Iron Hands. Putting this in your active to potentially slow them down or making it impossible for them to use Iron Hands would be pretty good. Of course, there's the Iron Bundle in the current format that allows you to push your opponent's active Pokemon out of the way, and they have to send up something else. I don't think you have 2 Antique Root Fossils in play, probably, but maybe you do. And going second with a lot of decks that play like Arven or Irida, be really easy to find the fossil and put it into play. It does get put into play as a 60 HP basic colorless Pokemon. And then you can discard it at any point you want. So if it's in your active going into your turn, you want to get something else in your active, you just discard it, and then you send up the new Pokemon, and you're good to go. So yeah, the Primal Roots could definitely be utilized to slow your opponent down. Could also stop them from using like TM Evolution in like a Gardevoir deck, which could be a really, really powerful use case for this card. You go first, you get this in the active, your opponent starts their turn, and now they can't use TM Evolution on their first turn, which is like huge to potentially slow down like a Gardevoir deck or something like that. Then going into your turn, you discard this, get into your attacker, start swinging, and your opponent is a turn behind from where they would like to be. So yeah, definitely decent. Also in control decks, possibly this is going to be really, really good to slow your opponent down. So I don't know if it's like a plus right now. Control's like pretty decent. Stall's pretty decent. I don't know if they need another tool, but they did get one. Pass this fossil because it's bad. Take a look at these 2 cards here. We got the Piappa Berry and the Oka Berry. They both reduce the damage they take by 60 for the Pokemon that it's attached to, and then you discard this card. The Piappa Berry is for Psychic Pokemon, and the Oka Berry is for Fire Pokemon. So you attach it to a Pokemon. If you get hit by a Psychic Pokemon with the Piappa Berry, you take 60 less damage, and then you discard this card. Same thing for the Oka Berry, but for Fire Pokemon. These are interesting. We got the gloves recently, like the Justified or Unjustified, whatever. We got all those kind of gloves for every single type of Pokemon. You did plus 30 damage. The only one that really saw play was the Justified gloves for the Charizard mirror match or other decks up against Charizard. These seem pretty similar, but it's kind of like the reverse of it. Instead of doing more damage to those types, you take reduced damage from those types. So very niche specific tool cards, but I'm sure they'll pop up and see play at times in their life in the standard format. And I'll be curious to see if they give us tools for every single type, or if it's just going to be limited to these 2 types. If this is it, it's just the Oka Berry and the Piappa Berry. That might be it, to be honest. All right, the tool card, the Terra tool card, Sparkling Crystal. The attack cost of Terra Pokemon this card is attached to is reduced by 1 of any energy type. So this will make it a lot easier for some of those Terra Pokemon attacks to actually be able to be used. You know, they take like 3 different energy types. The Sparkling Crystal will definitely help a lot with those. Like I mentioned with the Galvantula, could be pretty good overall, stuff like that. So yeah, Sparkling Crystal definitely going to see a decent amount of play in Terra decks. Another deck that would be pretty good in, honestly, right now would be like Dragapult. A lot of people forget, and I forgot, like stuff like Charizard and Dragapult are Terra Pokemon. I wouldn't play Sparkling Crystal in Charizard, but in Dragapult, that seems pretty good. Arven for it, plus like a Vessel, and go find a Psychic or Fire Energy, and you're cooking. Gravity Stone. If the Pokemon this card is attached to is in the active spot, the retreat cost of both active Pokemon is colorless more. It's like another tool for control, specifically Pidgeot EX. You put this on a Pidgeot EX, you bring up their Pokemon, and now your Pidgeot EX is like your stall Pokemon. That's kind of crazy for how good Pidgeot control can be. This is like an insanely powerful tool, I feel like, in control moving forward. Maybe not. Maybe I'm kind of overrating this card a little bit, but it seems pretty darn good. So yeah, the Gravity Stone seems insane in control. Deluxe Bomb. If the Pokemon this card is attached to is in the active spot and is damaged by an attack from your opponent's Pokemon, put 12 damage counters on the attacking Pokemon, then discard this card. That's a lot of damage counters. It is a tool card. Jamming Tower, Vacuum, definitely have a decent amount of answers in the format for tool cards, but if there's a way to like recover this aggressively in like a 1-prize deck, I think this could be really, really powerful. Like some kind of like Miss Magus or Frostlass spread deck that like played this card and then could recover it aggressively. The only thing I can think of is like Roseanne's Backup or Silene, which can get the card back, but then getting it back into your hand is the problem at that point. But if you could do it, hey, that's a pretty good combo. Crispin here. The more I've thought about this card, the better this card actually seems to me, specifically in stuff like Dragapult, or like even in the Galvantula deck. This would be really, really, really powerful as well. Search your deck for up to 2 basic energy cards of different types, reveal them, put one of them into your hand, attach the other energy to your Pokemon, then shuffle your deck. So theoretically, if you're playing the Galvantula deck, you could go search for a deck, attach an energy to it. You could get like a grass energy, accelerate that to an Ogerpon, attach a different energy out of your hand, and then E-switch from your Ogerpon to your Galvantula, and then you're doing 180 and item locking them again on that turn or something like that. So yeah, Crispin seems insanely powerful card. Stuff like Galvantula, stuff like Dragapult with a bunch of different energy types for their attacks. I mean, I guess Dragapult's only 2, but something like Crispin would be insanely powerful in a Dragapult deck for sure. You can go from 0 energy in play to 2 and be attacking, because not only does it accelerate an energy from your deck, it puts in another energy in your hand, which is definitely a part of this card that I undervalued on my initial analysis of it, but the more I've thought about it, I'm like, that's just really good. Not only does it accelerate energy to your Pokemon, you just get the other energy that you need for your energy attachment for turn, or to accelerate with an Ogerpon, or whatever it might be. You can utilize that in any way you want to further your board state, further your game plan. So definitely super powerful card in the Crispin. Brier, this card's been released for a little while, and I've gone over. I think it's a super powerful card. Until the end of this turn, if your opponent's active Pokemon is knocked out by damage from one of your Terra Pokemon's attacks, take one more prize card. Just in case someone is going to say it, no, this does not work with Iron Hands. Iron Hands is not a Terra Pokemon. It has to be a Terra Pokemon, and you can only play it if your opponent has exactly 2 prize cards remaining. But still a super powerful effect, and it can be sometimes pretty easy to force your opponent down into that prize card range. And if your opponent has to play around that prize card range of 2, that will probably buy you another turn to play the game anyways, which is what I've seen some people argue against this card, being like, oh, well, what if you just, like, instead of going down to 4 prize cards, then 2 prize cards, what if you go down to 5 prize cards, then 3 prize cards, then 1 prize card? It's like, well, then you gave me another turn to play the game. I think I'm happy with that trade-off. Even if I don't get to play my Brier, I got +1 turn to play the game. I'll take that trade-off, I think. But if you do go down to 2 prize cards, then the Brier gets involved, and that's where you can kind of take over, potentially. And it is if your opponent has 2 prize cards remaining, not you. And I think this card will be most valuable or see the most play in stuff like Charizard and Dragapult, not stuff like the more aggressive Terra decks. But yeah, something like a Charizard, something like a Dragapult, set up for some big late game combos to make a comeback in the prize exchange. That's where I think Brier's going to shine the brightest, is in decks like that. The Great Tree. This card's got a lot of text, like a Yu-Gi-Oh card over here. Once during each player's turn, that player may search their deck for a stage 1 Pokemon that... I feel like there had to be a simpler way to maybe there's not a simpler way to like write this out. Search your deck for a stage 1 Pokemon that evolves from one of their basic Pokemon and put it onto that Pokemon to evolve it. If that Pokemon is now a stage 1 Pokemon, they may search their deck for a stage 2 Pokemon that evolves from that Pokemon and put it onto that Pokemon to evolve it. Then that player shuffles their deck. You can't use this effect on a basic Pokemon on your first turn or on a basic Pokemon that was put into play this turn. But yeah, crazy powerful effect, specifically in stage 2 decks that play multiple stage 2s. And actually a card like this might prompt decks to start running, like, instead of just 2 stage 2s like the Pidgeot. Well, I mean, honestly, Pidgeot, Charizard, Dragapult plays 3 stage 2s. This will be crazy powerful in there. We might start to see decks playing 3 stage 2s because of this card. Now, finding this card can be a little bit iffy. There is the Colress card coming out in the Shrouded Fable set that searches your deck for an energy and a stadium card. You could Luminion for that to then go find the Great Tree. Also, 4 Sealstone still exists, though. So if we got Luminion or Rotom in play in one of these big setup decks, 4 Sealstone for Great Tree. Great Tree gets out of stage 2. We're cooking from there. So yeah, Great Tree, super powerful card. I can't wait to see what kind of stage 2 decks come out of this card, but it's definitely going to change the way that people build stage 2 decks, that's for sure. Another very powerful stadium, Area Zero Underdepths. If a player has a Terra Pokemon in play, that player can play up to 8 Pokemon on their bench. So you need a Terra Pokemon in play. You got a bench of 8 Pokemon. Yeah, going to be super strong in these Terra decks. And you can play it with stuff like Charizard and Dragapult, which don't really need more bench space to work with, but theoretically you could, I guess. I'm not sure if you're going to play it in those decks. Maybe you could play it as a way to like remove liabilities more so than anything. If you like put Rotom and Luminion in play, then all of a sudden you can like fill up your bench with a bunch of Dreepies or Charmanders and other setup Pokemon like Pidgeys and stuff like that. And then you can like vacuum away the Area Zero Underdepths, and then you discard your Rotom and your Luminion and stuff like that. So maybe it's like a cute way to remove liabilities. Maybe it's just not going to be very good in those decks, which is what I'm leaning towards. But with stuff like Terapagos, maybe even the Galvantula, I think this card is going to be insanely powerful in those style of decks for sure. Getting more Noctowls into play, or Hoothoots to become Noctowls, sounds like a good thing to me. And we need bench space for those Hoothoots. So Area Zero Underdepths gets us there. And that's it. All my thoughts on all the cards coming out in, what was it, Miracle something? Miracle Force? Miracle Star? I honestly don't remember the name of the set already. We were just talking about it. We just mentioned it. I knew it before we started the video, and now I've forgotten it. Well, that's going to do it for me. Hope you all enjoyed the video. Let me know what you think about all the new cards coming out. Is there any combos, obvious combos that I missed, or any that you are personally excited to try out? Comment section down below, and I'll catch y'all in the next video.